My philosophy from early on, before I even had anything figured out, was do what makes you happy. And I've always just followed that rule. Don't worry about anything except for doing what makes you happy, because that's really, if you're happy, what else do you need?
Hey everybody, welcome back. It's another brand new episode of Bourbon Pursuit, the official podcast of bourbon. I'm Kenny Coleman.
Ryan Cecil here.
And we're bringing back what will be a three-peater guest for us.
Three-peat.
Yes, we're going through our archives and looking to say, who are some of the best guests that we've had on Bourbon Pursuit as we start celebrating our 10th anniversary. And I remember the first time that we had our guest on, it was a deep dive into yeast, and it goes into the Bourbon Pursuit archives as one of the best that we've ever done. It goes into the category of, I don't even think you call it Bourbon 201. It might be Bourbon 301 at that point when you listen to this guy talk about it.
My head was spinning that episode.
It was, and we were kind of like, holy crap.
We're talking, let's bring it back. We were talking lawn diseases back then, yep.
Yeah, it was a long time ago. And then the other time we had him back, we were just catching up. We were actually at Wilderness Trail doing that and just kind of catching up. But so if
came fresh off the lawnmower,
that's what he was talking about. He just got done mowing the grass and he's coming inside, and we're like, all right, cool. I guess we'll go ahead and record now.
It's Dr. Lawnmower.
Dr. Lawnmower there. So if you want to check out some of our past episodes we've had with our guests, you can look at episode 121. That was back in November of 2017. Where we talked about the science behind bourbon and yeast. And then we also had episode 290, which was back in 2021, talking about just when Wilderness Trail was growing like wildfire. But back on the show today, Dr. Pat Heist. Welcome, man.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Glad to be back. Yeah, I
Good
don't
to
know. You mentioned three-peat. They say third time's a charm, or it could also be three strikes and you're out.
Yeah, that's one or
so
the
hopefully I'll get another invite back one day.
Well, we'll see. Well, you might get 4 stripes on your arm over here.
Yeah, and I got to thank you too. You helped me get my Moonshine University distiller certificate.
Oh, okay.
You were my teacher, so
nice.
It was.
Yeah,
you probably don't remember, but
no, I do. I remember all my best students.
That's right. I knew it was coming. It was like he'd always remember his favorites, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Oh man. So, needless to say, a lot has happened since the last time we talked. But I introduced you as Doctor. Is there? So why did people? Why is it Doctor now?
Yeah, so I used to be a professor at what was then the Pikeville College School of Osteopathic Medicine in Pikeville, Kentucky, which is now the Kentucky College of Osteopathic Medicine. So I was invited back to the commencement last weekend. I gave the commencement address, and they gave me an honorary doctorate. So now I'm Dr. Heist.
Some people want Mark Zuckerberg. They wanted Pat Heist.
Yeah, there's a couple ways to go,
All right. So you got to just explain to me, like I'm 5. What was the school? What is it? What does it do?
So it's an osteopathic medical school. I
have no idea what osteopathic
So if you
means.
go to the doctor, go to the hospital or whatever, and you look at the name tags of the doctors, you'll either see MD or DO. So doctor of osteopathy or a medical doctor, which is basically doctor of osteopathy has all the same, it operates just like a doctor, but they have additional training in what's called osteopathic manipulative therapy. That's where you're kind of taking more of a holistic approach to healing someone. So a doctor, MD would be more likely to prescribe, hey, your foot's hurting, let me give you some pain pills to solve the pain. A DO would be more likely to say, hey, let me check out your spinal cord.
Rub some sage on it.
Yeah, you could. I thought that's what it was at first, but actually it's very legitimate, sort of like physical therapy meets chiropractor meets a doctor.
Yeah, holistic.
It's real doctor.
Yeah.
But you're just checked out in more of a thorough way. So, you can heal the pain with medication, or you can heal what's causing the pain, which is kind of
not just take care of the symptoms, take care of the actual problem.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
So that
I was joking about
so let's say somebody's having a heart attack on the plane. Is this person going to be the right qualified one?
Well, and the thing is, if you got strep throat, you're still going to get antibiotics. Nobody's going to be chanting over you with rattlesnakes or anything with this. It's actually a very legitimate form of medicine. And I've actually become a big advocate for that because when I went there, Eastern Kentucky, I mean, I'm from what's considered Eastern Kentucky, but you
couldn't
still
tell by your accent.
Oh, yeah, I know that. But you can still drive an extra 150 miles east from where I'm from and still be in Kentucky. So that's real Eastern Kentucky over in Pikeville area.
Yeah, you're right.
That's as far east you can go.
As far east as you can go. That's Hatfield, McCoys, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Did you say, so you're getting into that kind of medicine, kind of doing your own thing with it? Is that what
No, I was a professor there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So actually, when Shane and I first started Firm Solutions, I was a professor, medical microbiology professor at the Pikeville College School of Osteopathic Medicine. And actually, we started our Firm Solutions laboratory there. So, which interestingly was when Paul Patton was the president of the school, as well as he just stepped out from being governor of Kentucky.
Yeah, I'd say Governor Patton. Yeah.
Yep. So a lot of really cool people over there, met a lot of great contacts, and but that's why I got invited over there to do the commencement addresses, just going back to where I used to teach.
Was it almost felt like a homecoming for you? Did it feel different going back in here and like were memories rushing back, or at this point has the whole campus feel like it's been like completely renovated and it feels almost brand new?
There's a lot that's gone on. They've grown the medical school. It's like double the enrollment. They have an ophthalmology school there now. They're getting ready to start a dentistry school. And one thing that I really love about that place, being someone who's from Kentucky and really likes for good things to happen in Kentucky, that school, the mission of that school is to train people from Appalachia who are going to practice in Appalachia. So when you look at University of Kentucky and University of Louisville and number of graduates versus the number of people that actually practice here in Kentucky, it's not very many.
Did they leave the state? Is that
they leave the state and go back wherever they're from, whatever country they're from or whatever. I mean, I don't know where the stats are when we bad-mouthing any medical schools. But that college, the mission is to place people in rural areas, and that's what they do. And it's just really fortified Eastern Kentucky. I mean, one doctor brings a lot of revenue because then you got pharmacies and different things. If everybody drives out of town to go to the doctor, that county's missing out on a lot of revenue. So it goes beyond just medical treatment and people being able to get medical treatment. So it's really something to support.
Yeah. And so for anybody that doesn't know, Pat and Shane, they had started Firm Solutions, which ended up growing and becoming later on. And you supplied yeast for a lot of people with inside the industry. And that's what is one of the major components that are required to make whiskey. But then after that, you started Wilderness Trail. But I kind of want to go back to this whole college thing here. So you said you had started Firm Solutions while you were there. The college wasn't like, hold on now, we need at least 10% of this business if you started it here within our headquarters. How'd that come about?
Well, at that time, Pikeville College and especially the School of Medicine there was struggling with accreditation because they just simply couldn't recruit enough professors. So whenever I went there, it was during a time of need. They really needed to get people there. So I didn't realize it till years later when I found out, the struggles they were going through at that time and how the faculty that came there. I recruited 2 people that I went to graduate school with to come over there who ended up being course director. One of the women who I went to graduate school that's over there now, Kathy Raymeyer, is still, and she's one of the highest ranking. She might even be the dean of basic sciences over there now. But, it was a very difficult time, and being over there really kind of bridged the gap of, was that school going to survive, and that's been such a huge thing for Eastern Kentucky. So, being there when I was there and knowing what an impact it had on the school, and that now, like I said, the school has increased enrollment and different things. So it's solidified now. And, to your point about, was it a homecoming and all that, I've kept up with, one advantage of having 800 former medical students who are now practicing doctors all over the place is they all start bourbon groups if one of their professors has a bourbon brand. And there's worse people to have as brand ambassadors than doctors who have friends who are doctors.
It's disposable income.
Yeah. I was going to say, and they're the kind of doctors that probably will prescribe bourbon. Right. So,
bourbon, a little bit of lemon juice, a little bit of honey. That's all the prescriptions they have. So I've kept up with a lot. Actually, I have businesses with a couple different of my former students. my band just played Hillbilly Days Festival the last 3 years in a row there. So last year we played Hillbilly Days. So I was over in Pikeville. A bunch of my former med students and faculty from the school came to it and everything. So
well, talk about your passion in music, right? Because this was going on way before even Wilderness Trail of playing in bands. Kind of talk about your passion and sort of like what led you to that and the instruments you play and bands you've been in and stuff like that too.
Yeah. So 1972, when I was born, I knew I was very interested in music. We'll start there.
I love this.
Your mom had the headphones on the belly.
Oh, yeah, playing. Absolutely. Yeah. But my mother and father were big into music. A lot of the first concerts I went to, my parents took me to. First concert I ever went to was I saw Heart in 1981.
Oh, wow.
And John Cougar opened up back when Jack and Diane and all that came out. My dad took me to see Van Halen on 1984 tour with David Lee Roth. I just saw we saw Journey, Bryan Adams opened up. Saw Billy Squier with Def Leppard opening up back when the drummer had two arms.
Sounds like my 80s Apple playlist.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. And I've just been a big fan of music in general, but growing up, I was always kind of more of a heavy metal. I was just having this conversation. Somebody was like, how come all your barrel warehouses are black? It's because we used to wear heavy metal shirts every day. We're the black artists of the industry, I guess. Yeah. Plus, Maker's Marks were black and it seemed like it's working good for them. But, just going from a love of music, Shane and I, a lot of times our brand story starts with, two dudes who were in rock band. So when I was in graduate school in the mid-90s, and Shane actually had already graduated with an engineering degree. He was on the fast track. He got out, I think, within 4 years. So he would have been out by the mid-90s. I still had 8 years to go in graduate school. I did the extended program.
The Van Wilder plan.
Yeah. Bachelor's, master's, PhD. It took me 13 years to do it.
Oh, wow.
I tell my kids, you get done a hell of a lot quicker than that.
I was about to say, that's you don't want to leave a party at 9 p.m., right? And that's you never want to graduate too early.
That's right. But Shane and I, we played in rock band as I was in graduate school. It was called Fulcrum. The engineers won on a band name then. But we played field parties and stuff around Danville and just had a good time. I don't think we ever got paid for anything. It was always just to get on stage and have fun. And then these days I play in a band called Zella May, and we've played for the last 4 or 5 years. I got some really good musicians in that band, and we actually play a lot of the original music that Shane and I wrote for our Fulcrum band, and we've got a few other ones. And then we play a lot of covers and different things like Alice in Chains, Stone Temple Pilots.
Oh, nice.
The kind of shit that we would want to listen to.
Do y'all still do those festivals, barbecue, and wasn't it a barbecue and rock
we had the
festival
Kentucky State Barbecue Festival there, and then COVID kind of stopped it, and we've been talking about getting that going again because we had 42,000 people that showed up the last time we did that. So
that's a lot.
It was, we thought there was going to be 8,000 at the best. Next thing you know, we got helicopters flying around. We got traffic problems in Danville from every direction.
It's going to make you feel good about yourself. A little pat on the back to get that sort of numbers out for it. Oh, man, that's awesome. And what's your instrument of choice? Are you kind of switching around between a few things?
Well, I started off on a trombone. My class ring from high school has trombone on one side and it says music on the other. So I was definitely got more than one time at band camp story for you.
Were you in the marching band or something?
Oh, I was in the marching band, college, all kinds of different. I even played with local colleges because trombone players were sort of few and far between. So I'd play like with Campbellsville College for their Christmas concert, just fill in for. I was real big into it. And then when I started college, I started off at Somerset Community College, and they didn't have a band, so that was kind of the end of the trombone. And I started playing guitar a little bit, and I've always been very interested in singing, and so I've always been the lead singer for the band. So that's what I do. It gives me an opportunity to see who's drinking Wilderness out there. Oh, you want me to play that song? You drinking Wilderness? I ain't playing it too.
There you go. That's how we take requests.
Yeah, that's right.
Did you ever take voice lessons or anything, or just felt like it came natural?
No, I spend a hell of a lot of time in the car. My wife is always amazed at how do you know the words to every song, no matter what channel it comes on. I know the words to every song in existence.
You got
from spending too much time in the car.
Just like a photographic memory or whatever.
Just listening to music for
Yeah.
so long, and and I've sang a lot, and I've kept lists. What songs can I sing? What songs do I? If it's on my list, then that means I can sing it really good.
Yeah. It seems like, you're definitely a really interesting person. One of my favorite people ever. And you have like all these, different stories and passions and this and that. How do you where do you think you got that mindset? Like, oh, I have an interest. I'm going to just do it. And like, I'm not going to think about it. It just seems like you'll pull the trigger on anything.
Yeah. Well, I've always been, my philosophy from early on, before I even had anything figured out, was do what makes you happy. And I've always just followed that rule. Don't worry about anything except for doing what makes you happy. And because that's really, if you're happy, what else do you need? And so I've just always followed that. When I started college, I really didn't know what I was going to do, and I started off in pre-medicine, just kind of what everybody would do. If you're interested in science, what are the possibilities? Doctor, veterinary, dentist, or pharmacist. That's all there is. At least that's what you
and
believe.
You didn't want to count
time.
pills.
Marine biologist is the other one people always like to go to.
Exactly. Yeah. Marine biologist. And then everybody takes psychology and they're like, I want to be a psychologist. And it's like, no, you don't. That don't. You got to be a psychiatrist if you're going to do anything there. Not Disney psychologist.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
But you know what I'm saying? That's just one of those classes that people take that they're just immediately interested in. They think, oh, that's what I want to do.
Yeah.
And when I took microbiology as part of my pre-med curriculum, I just loved it. And I knew back to my philosophy of do what makes you, that class made me happy. So I actually took a little side job working in the microbiology lab, preparing stuff for the class. And then I just kept a microbiology job all through college. And since it took me 6.5 years to get my bachelor's degree, I had 5 years of microbiology experience working by the time I got my bachelor's degree. And I'd already been in teaching. I was a TA at University of Kentucky. But back to your question, I've just always done things that made me happy. And I've also always been very driven to accomplish things, and it's sort of like I never set out to get a PhD, but once I saw that it was a possibility, I was like, oh shit.
You're like, well, I only need to be here another 3 more years,
man,
right? Yeah, I might as well stick around.
These people might actually keep me around, and I always I always just, well, that would be so cool. If I never did anything else the whole rest of my life, having a PhD would just be something you could hang your hat on, and in everything. I mean, my bachelor's degree, my master's degree, that, singing in a band, cutting a record, and having I always thought it'd be cool to have songs that were recorded, just things that you wrote, and that's something you pass along. I just always have this, I know when you're dead, you probably don't think about too much, but while I'm alive, I just have this, this drive to create a legacy, I guess is what it is, whether that would be music or a distillery or, I've got several different businesses currently that I'm doing outside of the bourbon industry. One of them being a truck parking company called truckparkingclub.com. I definitely
we talking like semi-trucks or
semi-trucks. So, and back to kind of just business in general, this has kind of become my newer passion is how do you create successful businesses? And all you got to do is figure out, what problems exist in today's society. Can you think of any? Well, I can think of a hell of a lot of problems right now. What are the solutions to those problems? Right there's the foundation for a business. So truckers can't find parking. 1 in 11 trucks can't find a parking spot when they need it. Truckers spend an average of 5 hours a week looking for parking spots. So one of my business partners.
When you say parking spots, I'm looking at like rest areas and rest stops and stuff.
I would assume because truckers can only drive so many hours,
right.
and then they got to park. And
that's right. And they start overnight. Like, holy crap, I got to find a spot. And if there's angst over, what if I can't find a spot before my time's up? It becomes like, then people are parking like an hour before they need to stop, and there's a lot of waste. So anyway, that's a need that need to be filled. So the first way that we went around about doing it, and this was before I got involved with the company, they bought up some property in areas where they needed truck parking. But when you go to planning and zoning, hey, I'm going to want this for truck parking. All the neighbors are like, oh, hell no, I don't no truck parking here.
It's like building a rick house anymore. Everybody's like, no, get the hell out of here. Yeah.
So the model that they thought would work didn't work. You can't do that because they're not going to let you do that. Maybe you get by with it 1 or 2 times, but it just in general wasn't working. So he came up with another idea. Well, hey, if you're a private landowner, like you guys out here, you got room for probably 6 semis to park.
Okay.
You get on Truck Parking Club, our website, and we would list you and somebody driving down the interstate here that needs a truck parking spot, and we'll list what hours they're allowed to park here.
It's like an Airbnb, but for truck parking.
Yeah. So the trucker pays to park, you get some of the money, we get some of the money. So that was a company that was started only a year and a half, 2 years ago. Currently, we park 20,000 trucks a day.
Oh my gosh.
Company. It's huge. It's ridiculous.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Walmart parking lots have just like, they got to be riddled with open space.
Yeah.
I love it.
It's ridiculous. So again, back to, just starting a business, you're just solving problems. And so that's kind of my, another passion of mine is just solving problems. You're filling a need. And
we got all kinds of problems.
Yeah.
Well,
you don't have enough time to sit here and consult us with that.
Mm-hmm.
But I do want to kind of ask a question because, we talk about problems and Firm Solutions was really your first baby here. How did you see a market opportunity when it just came to providing yeast for everybody? Was this just something that nobody ever thought of? Like, how did you discover this market opportunity?
So as someone who's passionate about microbiology, yeast is a microorganism. And the other thing about fermentations that we often don't speak of because it's not on the ingredients list. Hey, how much corn, how much rye, how much malted barley, what are my protocols, how much yeast do I use, enzymes or no enzymes, all these different things. But there are also other microorganisms that come into play like bacteria, wild yeast, things that you didn't put in there, but they're in there anyway. And the older the facility and the more famous in a lot of cases, the more complicated the microbiology of the distillery gets. If you want to crack the code on some of the most famous Scotch and Irish whiskeys or some of the really old bourbon distilleries, you've got to look at the organisms that are contaminating those facilities and that have evolved in those facilities. So we can go in there and say, hey, if you clean up these fermenters a little bit better or put in a different type of cleaning mechanism, you can make 50,000 extra bottles a week. But they're like, yeah, that sounds great, but is that going to affect my flavor profile? Because we've already, and if you got wooden fermenters or even a combination of wooden fermenters and stainless steel, you're going to be blending those together and it's going to create a flavor profile. And when we look at why would normally when we talk about bacteria getting into something, we're thinking of, oh shit, I got salmonella, I got E. coli. Well, the types of bacteria that contaminate distilleries and breweries are the same ones that would be like in yogurt or sauerkraut, or you can actually eat them. They're actually good for you in many cases. And they can create very favorable flavors. And how they do that is bacteria, as well as the yeast, consume sugar. They create organic acids. Organic acids end up in the distillate, and over time, as that distillate ages, organic acids condense with alcohols to form esters. And you don't have to be a chemistry genius for the word esters to spring some, what the ester, that's what gives the fruity notes, the vanilla, the caramel, the nutmeg, all the classic flavors of bourbon. And so those organic acids that are produced by the contaminating organisms are what lend to a lot of the flavors. So with Firm Solutions, we are able to study that. And then again, the typical phone call we get from our customers is, hey, dude, your yeast ain't working. The fermenter's not bubbling right.
But before that, were people contacting you to get yeast before Firm Solutions? Like, how did you find the market?
Yeah, so I actually started consulting for a company that sold yeast into the fuel alcohol business. And I started off there. And fuel ethanol, a lot of people, when we talk about stillage issues, I remember the KDA was like, oh my God, with these new distilleries coming on, we're going to make this much stillage. And it's like, you know what? Even with that stillage, we're still not even making as much stillage as one fuel ethanol plant makes.
Really?
There's 150 of those here in the United States. So it's like, no, we ain't got stillage problems.
Do they, before we exit off that, do they get rid of it the same way that we try to get rid of it, of giving it to farmers and everything? Okay.
But
So
they
there's no
take it
difference
to
there.
a dried form, and they're making. So first of all, whenever you're running such a huge facility like fuel ethanol distilleries, a small one would be 200 million proof gallons a year.
Oh, that's a
Wow.
lot.
A small one.
massive.
The big ones are like 600 million proof gallons a
All
year.
right. Yeah, you're not joking.
So whenever you're a yeast supplier, that's the first ones you want to go after.
those are
the
those are
elephant in the
whales.
room. Yeah.
Yeah.
Somebody's got, 7 1.1 million gallon fermenters. That's who I want to be selling yeast to. So we broke into that industry first. And that industry is highly sophisticated because when you look at the fact that we're selling a gallon of alcohol, a gallon of 200 proof alcohol would be 2 proof gallons for us. That's 27 whatever dollars of federal excise tax. Fuel ethanol plants are selling a gallon of 200 proof alcohol for $1.50 and making a profit on it.
Wow.
So that means they have to be running tight.
Yeah.
They can't have one drop of anything going but in the tank. So all the corn that comes in, they look very closely at yield. How many gallons of alcohol am I getting per bushel of grain? We look at that same thing in this industry. They're making from 100% corn. We've got multiple mash recipes. So there are differences, but there were a lot of really cool, sophisticated things that we were able to bring over from that industry. Because in bourbon and other distilled spirits, the profitability is so high, you can screw up 20 different ways and still have a profitable brand. But if I can create more efficiency and I can take advantage of all that opportunity as well, then I can really have a profitable business. So we were able to bring some of the things over from fuel ethanol over to beverage alcohol that they just simply weren't doing. For example, one of the huge things that we do differently is we cook our mash at about 185 degrees. That's the temperature at which cornstarch gelatinizes. So why does everybody in the industry cook at 211, 213? Because
Just the way they did it.
Yeah.
the way they did it. Could have been going back to when great-grandpa didn't have a thermometer in his back pocket. And in the woods, you're using boiling as a temperature indicator. And then when somebody finally says, we got to write this down. And then it's like, well, he brought it to a boil. All right, that's about 213. But then nowadays we have with Shane and I's scientific observations in hundreds. I mean, we've been in hundreds, if not over 1,000 different distilleries, and nobody ever invites us over on a day where everything's going great. It's always some problems.
You're not the first call they make, right?
Yeah. So you just learn about all these different, oh gosh, if I had a distillery, I'd never do that. If I had a distillery, I would definitely do that. So over the years, we just accumulated all these best practices. And then finally, to answer your question about how, how do you go from one to the next, is I think it was really more of Shane and I, we are a really good yin and yang. If Shane was in charge, everybody would quit 20 years ago. If I was in charge, everybody would be on vacation every day, and it'd be a disaster for that reason. But if you take the right balance of those two philosophies, you have a really great culture and really great environment. But with Firm Solutions, we kind of had that company up and running. And we started we were racking our brains over like, golly, man, we got to have some hobbies here. And we just picked up some other things, and Shane started fishing more and doing things. And then we started getting this idea of like, God, we got all this experience with distilleries. Shane's grandmother, it used to work for Stitzel Weller. She actually started with the Kentucky River Distillery when she was 14 years old, which that's the one where Wild Turkey owns the warehouses down to Camp Nelson on the Kentucky River. So she started there when she was 14, ended up getting promoted, and ended up retiring from Stitzel Weller in her 60s, like back in the 90s. She met Shane's grandfather working at the Stitzel Weller Distillery. So he had this family history also kind of in distilling and was wanting to, hey, man, that'd be cool if we had our own distillery. And so it was a little bit of heritage, but it was also a very logical progression of Firm Solutions. Wow, we've got customers and we were getting more and more into craft distilling, and I was teaching at Moonshine University, and we're getting in front of craft distilleries 4 years before their distillery comes open. Our competitors are, oh, there's a new distillery, let's go check them out. They're like, hey, buddy, I done met Dr. Heist 4 years ago. So we had a real easy time with that. So Firm Solutions, the progression was, hey, let's start a small distillery. And dude, our first still was a 3-gallon copper pot that we bought off of eBay, and we distilled a 12-pack of Bud Light I had out in my car. Took the
I didn't know you could
biscuits.
get a still off of eBay
I
the whole
didn't
time.
Yeah, you still get them off of eBay. So, but that's kind of what started it. And then little by little, we got a 50-gallon hillbilly still. And then we're like, we need to have a real distillery here. So we got a hold of Vendome and actually Dave Shurk, we were looking at Cote stills, to be quite honest.
What's a Cote still?
It's a Austrian, maybe a German, one of those.
They
two
have like
countries.
kind of like this like bubble-ish kind of like weird thing at the top, and then it's kind of like cylindrical. Is that?
Yeah. They kind of got like little cylindrical looking pots, and then they have rectifying columns. It's a very prevalent still. They're all over the place. But the manufacturer is in Europe. So we always thought, golly, what if we had a problem with it? And then, we're Kentucky proud guys and all that kind of stuff. So we started looking around. Dave Shurk, I had to put my hat off to him. He used to be with Woodford and Seagram's. You guys probably know him.
I've heard of him before.
Yeah, he's a real good dude. But he kind of, we rode up here to Louisville with him one day, and he took us over to meet Steve Thompson, who they used to work together at Brown-Forman. And we got some great advice from him.
He's put together some crazy stills.
Oh yeah, yeah. Oh gosh, he was just starting to have the junkyard collection of things back then. It was before that the Kentucky Artisan even got started. But a great time to be getting started in the industry. And then we just started off with that 200-gallon pot still, which had a combination of rectifying columns that allowed us to do bourbon and rye whiskeys, rum, and vodka. So we kind of used, hey, if we got customers, we can train them on whatever the heck they want to make. So that was really why we started Wilderness, and we were making 1 barrel a day, maybe 3 days a week, and we did that for a couple years. And then I think that it was really where we're in Firm Solutions and getting phone calls of, hey, this damn yeast isn't working, we became the guys that people call for anything. Any distillery, hey, what size of boiler do I need to heat 150,000 gallons of water to this temperature in 1 hour? Shane know that, I know something else. So people call us for anything. Well, we started getting phone calls of, do you know anybody that can make 1,000 barrels? Do you know anybody that can make 5,000 barrels? Do you know anybody that can make 10,000 barrels? And we're like, we can make like 150 barrels. But that's the kind of stuff that you don't even have to have a spreadsheet to figure out. It's like, oh, let's see, I can make 70,000 barrels for this cost and I can sell them. And that's back when it was hot.
Yeah. So
we just looked at the opportunity for contract production, and where Shane and I were 100% in control of everything. You can just, we take a drive to Dairy Queen and you got board decisions made by the time you get back.
Over a blizzard.
Yeah, absolutely. So it
Dilly
was like,
bar.
dude, we got opportunity here in Firm Solutions. And, a lot of people think of Firm Solutions as something in the past. We had our best year ever last year. We do business with hundreds of distilleries and breweries, hard seltzer, all that kind of stuff. So we're still a very vibrant company. But we got this opportunity for contract production, and then we just very quickly, put in that 18-inch column, and then followed that within a year and a half with 36-inch column. And next thing you know, we're from 1 barrel a day, 3 or 4 days a week, to 220 barrels a day, 7 days a week. And we were building a 24,000 barrel rick house finishing one every 3 months, starting 3 like within 6 months. It's ridiculous.
Just I would think from a business perspective, you'd be looking at this like the costs are really starting to add up here. But I guess the good thing, you got it at the right time, because contract distillation meant, well, I'm using your money to basically fund everything that I'm doing here already. So It's not a ton of money out of pocket, but you're starting to move millions of dollars at a time.
It's still out of your pocket if you're making it and then giving it back.
That's true.
But at least, we had the roadmap, and I'll give Shane, almost all the credit for just forecasting and navigating. That dude is a hell of a business guy. And, and not only that, but he's a hell of an operations guy. I'd put him against anyone in the world, like 10 steps above anyone in the world on process for this industry. Dude knows his shit. And plus he's an engineer too. And he used to work for venture capital. So he's got a lot of business experience. So when we started, we'd call Independence Dave or whoever, hey, we need 10 barrels. And that'll get us by a month or so. And they're like, yeah, right, So we were calling whoever we could get barrels from. Then next thing we're striking, we need to do a contract for 70,000 barrels this year. And now it's like, okay, you got the attention.
Got some leverage.
Now. Yeah, I need to buy 1 million pounds of grain every 5 days now. So you start getting a little bit of leverage. And then yeast, we had a good source of yeast.
Yeah, you kind of own
always.
that part of the market.
Yeah. So, it was just organic growth, and we're both entrepreneurs. We both have our own skill sets, and we were both able to recognize these opportunities as the whole bourbon boom was unfolding. And then little by little, just take advantage of those opportunities as any entrepreneur would do.
Well, before we ask the next question, you brought some stuff here. What should we try here?
Yeah, so I'll leave it up to you guys, but what I have there is when you got your hand on there, that's a barrel strength wheated bourbon.
Ooh, wheat. Do you ever think wheated bourbon would be so
as
pronounced or popular? Because now people are like putting wheated bourbon and all that.
Yeah. Well, we always knew we were going to start with a wheat because our favorite bourbons were wheaters. People ask me all the time, if you're not drinking Wilderness, what are you drinking? And the answer to that question would be Maker's Mark or Weller or something along those lines. And Shane's grandmother Shane's family rather had the history with Stitzel Weller, so it just seemed like, yeah, man.
Well, I'll hand it over.
So
you got to drive back to Danville after this. I was just making sure you're good.
Yeah, all right. That's just a little
sippy sip.
Little sipper.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But yeah, she came from Stitzel Weller, which is famous for the wheated bourbon profile and whatnot. So.
Well, and the other thing, when we started Wilderness, we knew that we wanted to support local agriculture. So we said, well, hey, let's work with local farmers to grow local rye. And we didn't make any rye whiskey or rye bourbon for a year after we started production because we waited till we could get local rye. Nowadays, we use millions of pounds, so we're having to get it, wherever we can get it. But back then, it was very important to us. It's still very important to us to do as much business as we can in Kentucky. But once you get, a certain point, you have to get things where you can get them.
Yeah. What percentage of your business was contract versus stuff for Wilderness,
Well, it kind of like, it started off where let's say we had 100% of our capacity, but we didn't really have enough contract production to fit. There was a point in time where we were making all the Wilderness we needed to make, which was people all the time asked us, like, how did you know how much whiskey to make? Shane and I, we count our money up the end of every year, and we divided that by the amount of dollars it took to make a barrel. And that's how many barrels we made. We laid down some barrels. We didn't. The good news about starting a company when you're broke is if you stay broke the whole time, things don't really change that much. So we never felt like we were under any kind of, especially me, because I was really, truly broke. Shane had a little bit of money because he started working well before I did. So I think some of our initial capital for firm was actually Shane. So he was even more worried about it than me.
That's the reason why you were still cutting the grass the last time we interviewed you.
Yeah. Well, we've always had that mentality of, hey, how many bottles do I got to sell to overcome this cost? So.
Yeah. So, because contract distillation is great because you're bringing money in, but when you have your own brand, then you got to work with distributors and retailers and this and that. And like, how did you compartmentalize the two different, and work through those, I guess, two different avenues of the business?
Deal with sales.
Yeah, deal with sales.
Who's the salesperson out of you two? Or did you say, like, that's it, we got to hire somebody out for this?
No, we always had, you probably remember like Jared Smith. We had Macaulay with us, Haley, a lot of, we've had great sales and marketing people all along. Initially, again, I think I do more probably public stuff than Shane does, but he's the one that designed and built and masterminded our entire distillery. And again, there's a lot of things that we don't talk about on a day-by-day basis that Shane did, like simple things, like how do we pull the CO2 off our fermenters? We don't have a whole extra system that does that, which every other distillery does. Each of our fermenters has its own designated fill header And we're able to use that fill header to pull off our CO2. It's like a MacGyver move that only somebody like Shane will be able to do. So, there's a lot of stuff that he does, but I do a lot of, the TED Talks and the.
Yeah. Thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk about that. How did the idea of anybody that doesn't know, Pat actually has a really great episode, and you can look it on YouTube, but you did a TED Talk. How did that come about?
Well, I had a friend, actually, I'll be quite honest with you, it was Marianne Barnes.
Oh, nice.
She got a hold of me one day, and I think she was getting ready to have a baby or something. And she had been invited, and there's this guy out in Nevada who's a huge bourbon fan, who was the TED guy out there. And I got a hold of him, and basically it was just, hey, I think if you get a hold of them, they'll, and I'm all about the earned media, any chance I can get. Might be one reason why I'm here today.
There we go.
Actually, I'm here to hang out with two of my best friends in the industry.
Butter us up with whiskey and compliments.
Exactly. But actually, Marianne called me up, and she was like, hey, here's an opportunity. And that's, I think, a great example of how this industry works a lot of time. I feel that way too. If I have an opportunity to do something, and we were just talking about the Disney Pixar group, and like you guys got to meet those people.
We'll use your Rolodex any day.
Yeah, absolutely. We're always happy to help. But she called me up and was like, hey, I think this would be a great opportunity. And I got a hold of the dude, and then we hit it off. And while I was out there, I met, that's when I went out to Fry Ranch and met Colby and Ashley. And we've been friends ever since then. And they bring their production team to Wilderness Trail almost every year for, if they hit a certain goal, that's their surprise they get.
Get to go to Danville.
That's right. That's a big deal.
Well,
but,
do you know that when you did that and you went out and talked to Frey Ranch, you came back, I believe that was the time that you gifted us a bottle of Frey Ranch that turned us onto it, and we became huge fans of it, and then we spread it around,
and
right?
We tried to get them to produce whiskey for us, and we can't.
Well, that's... But that's a great example of how the industry should work. If you got something you pass off to somebody else, opportunity.
Yeah,
but
huge fans there.
That was great. That was like right when COVID started. I was literally scrambling to get on a plane to get back here. That was the last damn thing where there was going to be a crowd of 3,000 that I was involved with. From that point on, I didn't even fly anywhere probably for a couple of years.
Yeah, I would imagine.
Yeah, this Wheated bourbon's great. So you're starting Wilderness Trail and you're like, all right, I've seen all these people make mistakes or do well and this and that. And so you're like, tell me about this product. Why did you pick, this mash bill, this yeast, this, that created this product from your years of research?
Yep. So, initially, well, first of all, we're a sweet mash producer. Most everyone else is sour mash producer.
Yeah, which you're very well known for.
Yep.
Is that marketing or is it really different?
It's really different.
Yeah.
And one of the things that when you look chemically what's going on in the process, one of the reasons why you would do the sour mash process, they say, is to make things more consistent. And you can think about that like sourdough bread. Is it kind of like that? My grandma gives me a pinch, and it's like, yeah, but grandma didn't put her pinch through 213 degrees still. It still had all the organisms alive in it. So when you look at what does that backset really do? And probably one of the best at-home examples that I've encountered personally is when I've tried to make kombucha at home. And you basically make sweet iced tea, and then you take the big flap of the culture from the previous batch.
Is that from your osteopathic days?
No, this is actually just from other days of trying to figure out actually something to do with all these bacteria we got, because those are probiotics. But kombucha, if you don't take a scoop of the previous batch and put it in there, you get fungal colonies growing all over it just ruins. And so it really taught me, even though I'd been studying sour mash forever, that was a great example of, oh, wow, that acidification, you drop that pH just a little bit and it inhibits the contaminating organisms, which if you're running an old distillery that's got problems cleaning, like a lot of the old distilleries just because they're old, if you don't do sour mash, you're going to be totally screwed in fermentation. So when we built our distillery, no wooden fermenters. Each fermenter has its own designated fill header, so we can clean that thing anytime we want. We don't have problems that a lot of other distilleries have. So we were able to run a sweet mash confidently because we didn't have a lot of background pressure. So that's what they mean when they say, well, we believe it makes it more consistent if you do it like us, because if you're starting with fresh water each time, It don't get no more consistent than that. And if you're putting back set from different batches every time, we already know every batch is different in some way, especially if they get contaminated. So you're carrying forward something that is inherently not consistent. And this business is all about consistency. So it just made more sense for us to do a sweet mash. And if the problem is microbiology, that's what we're experts in. So we're the company that other people call when they have those problems. We figure out how they got those problems. So let's just build our distillery without those problems. That's what the philosophy was.
Makes sense.
But back to my point, what does it do? If you have a less acidic mash, meaning it's higher pH, the distillate's going to be a little bit higher pH. So we're sitting here drinking right now a 115 proof, and it's pretty damn smooth for that proof.
Yeah, so it's the same.
And that's
It's
the
smooth.
acidity of the distillate. It's less acidity, it's more basic. Okay. And anyone who makes cocktails or mixologist or whatever, it definitely appreciates how do you balance acidity with sweetness and savory. And so the acidity of the base spirit is just as important as the acidity of any additional acidity you're going to put in there.
Yeah.
So it's another way of thinking about it.
Makes sense.
Well,
So you're going to rye?
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and just pour the rye real quick, and then we'll get the unlabeled one here in a second too. I kind of want to switch gears a little bit because let's talk about 2022 timeframe, 23, and you get a phone call from Campari, right? And it's known that you all have probably exited at the peak of where bourbon was at the time. You had, I think it was close to like what the report said, like almost like $500 million. And I kind of want to just talk about, what was that feeling going into those phone calls and trying to figure out, is this the right move for us? What do we want to do? And was there any tension between you and Shane as business partners to say, like, do we sell? Do we not sell? What was the right move for you all?
That's a great question. And, going back to all that, our intention was always to just keep on keeping on. I mean, we just saw a future in this company, which we still do. But at that point in time, we were already in 44 states, getting ready to close out the last few to make it, complete national sales. But we were also starting to sell into Germany and England and France and other places. I had an apartment in Sweden for like 3 years. I don't know if you guys met Linus and Linus and I've seen your episode.
And Henrik. We got friends there. Yeah, they've been on the show before too.
So I've actually gone over there and done podcasts in Sweden. Linus actually helped me and my wife get an apartment over there in Uppsala. It's pretty cool. And then Henrik, I've done presentations over in Copenhagen with his group, and so we're good friends with those guys. But anyway, we were looking to go global and just kind of looking at, have always been very well capitalized, but at the same time, we've always spent a hell of a lot of money. So we needed that capital. We went from 13 acres and one 2,200 barrel rickhouse to currently 165 acres with 14 24,000 barrel rickhouses on there. So whenever you look at the trajectory of your life, it's like, hey, you know what? When I'm 65, I'm going to have 25 rickhouses and 400,000 barrels, but I'm never going to have anything else. I'm always going to, when you look at the growth plan for how you got to support the growth. So we were at a stage of recapitalization. And just as what does it look like if we took on a joint venture or if we got a partnership, and that's where we started looking around for different partners. And it wasn't just as simple as, Campari called us up. It was, there was actually a lot of different opportunities that we were looking at.
So you were the one making a lot of the phone calls at first, got
absolutely.
it. Okay.
Yeah. And then so it just turned out that out of all the activity that we were looking at, Campari made the best choice for us. And again, looking at the fact that they have their own global distribution, they are very, nationwide here. Those were the decisions that we were looking at, and it just seemed like the right thing. Everybody is going to have it's your baby, your company. And so anytime you're selling it or divesting any part of it, there are definitely going to be feelings involved. And in business, you just have to really do the best job you can of there's feelings over here, but then there's what's best for the business, because I'm not going to be around forever. Shane's not going to be around forever. We didn't have children who just were immediately stepping up to be the next master distillers, nor did we want to pigeonhole our kids into doing something that wasn't obviously what they wanted to do.
Like, Dad, I just want to be on Broadway.
I just want to just get the money. I don't want to. No, we've all tried to be very.
Yeah, you got to be supportive of little ones.
Yeah. But we were looking at that, and that's really what it came about. What started off as just a massive recapitalization, because that was really the first time we were like, we're going to have to go outside of the Pat and Shane shield here and actually take on some significant. I mean, we'd always had fairly insignificant revolvers and different things, but this was going to be a very significant move, and so it just made more sense.
Just to increase capacity, because you're trying to figure out how do we continue to grow.
We haven't increased our capacity any since that transaction went down. We still got the same exact capacity, but the idea there was to take away some of the contract production and replace that with more wilderness production, and then
because long term it's more money for you.
Yeah, there's
more value in the brand.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. But and then we're also a big contract, and we still produce a lot of contract production. I watch your all's episodes all the time, and I'm always like, hey man, we're here too. Green River and Bardstown Bourbon. Green River, Bardstown Bourbon.
All right, fine. We'll start saying we'll put Wilderness Trail in that.
There for a time, I called one day, and y'all said nope, we're full.
Well,
that was like 6 years ago.
That was probably the only damn day.
You called the one day.
Yeah, exactly. But, it's just very interesting how all that has played out. And
where do you see the future of contract distilling? Because we're going through, a time where you were fortunate that a lot of people got in, investors, look at barrels and see them as appreciating assets and this and that. And, that's kind of, we're going through a period where it's like, okay, that's not necessarily how things have played out in the spreadsheets that they were presented. And so what do you think the future of contract distilling is?
Well, as anyone who's in the business knows now, there's a lot of uncertainty right now. A lot of investors, I think there's still a lot of people that want to do that. It's a really good model. It's a good investment model.
Totally.
And because, there is an actual asset that's sitting there, and that asset gains value as it ages. It just makes a lot of sense. But right now, where barrel pricing, and you guys know because you buy barrels, things are just wacky right now. So if I was an investor, I would be just sitting back kind of watching, because there's deals that'll pop up that are just like, oh gosh, somebody had to do something. A bank, if a bank takes possession of inventory, for example, that creates a very interesting situation. So not only with the barrels, but also, where there have been huge distilleries that have been built and shuttered like within a short period of time, that could open up the door for equipment, and there's all these different possibilities. So again, hey, we got a problem here. What's the solution for that? There's another business opportunity. So we're looking at the whole thing, not just barrels, but to your question, contract production right now is kind of a little bit in the shitter, you could say. But I think a lot of it's just because the people who would be buying right now are just kind of waiting until the dust settles a little bit. What is going to be the price per barrel? It's fluctuating right now. So if I can save $50 a barrel, if I wait 6 months, or maybe I can buy 1 year old in 6 months for what I'm getting ready to pay for new make. So there's all these ideas going through your head. And one thing I can say about Wilderness is that, we had, now that we've got Campari on board, like with some extra eyes in there and, crawling around. And of course, they're very concerned about inventory and different things, because when you look at a distillery that's got 50,000 barrels or 100,000 barrels, you got to look at the stratification. How many of those really are good enough? Have they cherry picked all their best stuff out of there, and now they're just left with the garbage?
It's all the biggest bullshit though. When you start talking about people, it's like, yeah, leave them with garbage. Do you really think that happens?
It is absolutely a happening thing.
Okay.
Absolutely. And when you look at, and again, being someone who looks at things like that for distilleries, there are, I won't call out any distilleries, but there are definitely issues. And one of the things, like back to what I was saying about, having Campari on board, we had a report of like somebody was out in the warehouse just tasting different barrels, and they're like, oh man, we found something that we didn't like here. What's going on? And I was like, October 19th, 2022. And they were like, yeah, that's when it was. And they said, how'd you know? I said, because that's the only damn day I ever knew we had a problem. And by
you should have been like Shane was in charge that day.
Yeah, exactly.
I was doing my TED talk that
day. Well, but the thing is, a lot of distilleries, and again, we're the ones get the phone call like, hey man, something's going on here, and it turns out, yeah, that's been going on for the last 8 months. And so if you put back 9,000 barrels or 12,000 barrels, when something's going on, you didn't figure it out. So my point to that, whenever you look at now, you're looking at all these different, some of these big contract production houses that have barrels from all different kinds of distilleries, we're seeing people like, oh, it's Wilderness Trail barrels. We're seeing a little more confidence. Like we don't, a lot of times don't even have to send samples. But if it's the other distillery, and some distilleries have kind of lower on the totem pole than others, it's like, no, I need 1 out of every 10 barrels at least. Because again, if you're holding hundreds of barrels of something that's got geosmin in it or something that's got another tainted, quality to it, you sure as hell want to get rid of those barrels. It's just like you're just holding them till, one day they're going to be floor cleaner,
Yeah.
and you can't be expecting those to be gold medal at 10 years. So, but there's a lot of that, and
age won't fix everything, right?
Yeah. But my point was confidence, and Wilderness Trail as a pitch for contract production, we're on the ball of top level of being confident and consistency. It's just good thing we got
part
going
of it.
there.
Yeah, that rye whiskey. I love the
was
wheat
really
of
good.
bourbon. The rye whiskey was incredible.
I love our rye whiskey.
Yeah.
We catch a lot of people who at tastings and things, you lead them through the bourbon tasting, and then you get to the rye. They're always
rye.
on
Not a
rye.
drinker.
And it's like, just hold on a minute. And if you can get them to try it, it's like a gateway rye, And there's a lot of bad ryes out there, just to be quite honest. When you
I think
look
there's a lot of bad ryes. I think most of them just all taste the goddamn same. It's all the same place. It's all coming from the same place.
That's another problem with rye. Well, and even if it's not coming from the same place anymore, once the distilleries start making their own, it's the same mash recipe.
Yeah, it's all 95.5, right?
Yeah. So ours is 56 rye, 33 corn, 11% malted barley. So got a little bit of that corn in there that kind of sweetens it up a little bit.
We're big fans of the corn.
But given how little rye it has, it's still got a tight rye punch to it, like you'd want in a rye whiskey.
Oh, totally. And what's this other one you brought that's in the unlabeled unicorn over here, too?
Yeah, that's just, I'll give credit to Riley and Brian, our two barrel gurus at the distillery. They picked that for me this morning. They were just, hey man, this is a kick-ass barrel. That's a high rye bourbon there, 116 proof. We go into the barrel at 110. So typically we're coming out 113 to 118. So that one's kind of falling right, kind of close to where we would.
Right in line where it needs to be.
Because I'm assuming you're looking, most distilleries do like 125, some do 100. And you found 110 to be that sweet spot for you all?
Yeah. And again, a lot of that was going back to what did Stitzel Weller used to do.
Yeah.
We were kind of, and that's why did we go with the lower corn? A lot of distilleries go in.
This is really good.
Yeah.
That's the high rye
That's
bourbon.
special, yeah.
Yeah. That's really good.
Yeah, that's tasty.
But, we have less corn than other recipes, so that's kind of another thing that harkens back to, whenever they cared less about the bottom line and more about how do you make a great flavored whiskey. So that was another reason we went with, our bourbons have 64 corn, 24% of either rye or wheat, 12% malted barley. So,
very good.
Damn good job.
I know.
They're tasty.
Cheers to that one. And so one last question as we kind of wrap this up, as we sip this unlabeled unicorn over here. It's a really good one.
Good job, Riley.
Yes, very good. So, back to, Campari, it made national headlines when Wilderness Trail was being, I don't want to say sold or acquired. I mean, partnered. I don't know what a good word is for what it was.
Well, it was definitely an acquisition, because they ended up with 70%.
Yeah.
Of the
So you
company.
lost some voting shares into there, I guess, is the best way to be
No
able to
more
say it.
shareholders at Dairy Queen, right?
Yeah,
There you go.
no more board meetings.
Yeah, it's just a Firm Solutions now. It just goes to Dairy Queen. How's life changed for you? The idea that you had mentioned, I was poor and Shane's this, and but for real, how has life changed for you afterwards?
I would like to say that I spend a lot more time, in saying enjoying myself would not be the right words, because I've always enjoyed myself. I love staying busy. My wife's always like, God dang, dude, you didn't do
Do we need to do this
Yeah,
anymore?
like,
Can't we just go live in Aruba? What's going on?
Well, but I've just always been driven to do things, and the distillery, what's changed with the distilleries, we've just got a lot more resources to deal with now. So we've got a lot more people out on the streets selling our product. We've got a lot more, Campari has an internal educational academy called Campari Academy. And so we've been, working with them to do different things. And so a lot of educational events we participate in, like a really cool program called Behind the Barrel that brings in bar managers from all over the United States, and they, take them to a couple different distilleries, and I get to do a master class with them. And so I'm still doing a lot of the stuff that I used to do, but I'm not going to be found at Liquor Barn trying to
sling your
flag
whiskey
somebody
anymore.
down who just wants a bottle of Tito's. Hey, can you taste this? I've done my fair share of that, but
I was like, good.
I've been there.
We're there right now.
yeah. But you know what? That's the thing, man. You've got to, and actually that might be a good place to kind of talk about just here in the end here, is what you guys are doing, and what I see what you guys are doing, and I also see what a lot of other people are doing. And people that get into this business or any business for the right reasons and do the right things, and not only for themselves, but for the people that they're serving, it usually always comes out fine. So you just have to have that confidence and try to draw encouragement from other people who have gone through the same path. I mean, you guys are, I see really good things ahead for you guys. And because you've got such a great reputation, I feel like if I went to buy a bottle, and I have bought several bottles of Pursuit Spirits.
We appreciate that.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, and I get free bottles every now and then whenever you guys come to the distillery, and I appreciate that. But, I feel like, your brand has I feel like there is a confidence associated with it that I could go in and buy a bottle any day of the week, and it's going to be a great bottle, because you guys know what great whiskey is, and that can't be said for other brands. And I think that your success is you'll be successful for that reason. So,
well, you said your hardest times were looking back, are your most fun times.
Yeah. The challenge is, when everything's easy street, it really does get boring quick. I'm not the kind of dude that just, I'll go to the beach for the rest of my life, or I want to do that.
I see pictures of Shane. He's on the beach a lot nowadays, right?
Yeah, but he's working. Let me tell you, man.
He's fishing. I see him deep sea fishing.
The way that he fishes and the equipment that he's got to deal with now, he's got more weather equipment than the local weather station's got on his boat. So he's working. But yeah, he's doing what he loves, and that's what it's all about, and challenging yourself and constantly, staying busy. And, as you get older, that just becomes more important. And, I really am proud of you guys for what y'all have done, and I see
we're
good
proud
things.
of you all.
Yeah,
too,
that means a lot. Man, thank you so much, and thank you so much for being a great friend. And I do have one more question, because I'm sure this is a scenario that runs through everybody's head. It says, if I win the lottery, this is what I'm going to do for myself. What was did you have one lavish thing that you bought for yourself, whether it was like a guitar or a car or like anything like that, when you said like, oh my God, like we made it?
Yeah, well,
just one. Humor me.
Yeah, well, I do have the most badass home in my home
in
my home
Danville?
county.
Yeah.
that I think that Hank Williams Jr. was wanting, but I wanted a little bit more than he did.
I love it.
But that's one thing. But the things that mean the most to me are doing things for my parents, and doing things for my family, and doing things for, nowadays, we've got the means to help people out, and do good things and support people who are doing good things. So that's why I'm involved in a lot of businesses. We talked about Truck Parking Club. I've got some commercial development projects going that are really like, even if I don't make money on this project, if it puts a really cool shopping center in the hometown where my mother lives, then that'd be a great thing for Kentucky, and it'll be a great thing for my family. And I think about things a lot like that now, rather than, how much money can I make off something.
Yeah.
I feel like you're becoming like the Mark Cuban of bourbon over here, right? Investing in businesses and figuring out what comes on the other side.
He's the shark of Pikeville.
He is.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
I love it, man. Well, Pat, thank you so much again for coming on here. It was a real pleasure to kind of talk to you once again years later after everything that's happened. Congratulations on everything. Like it's
totally.
You're
one of the best humans out there.
Yeah,
Well,
totally. And
Thank you.
it's one of those things that, kind of back to what you said, I think if you're in here for the right reasons, like it would have been so easy for you to just be like, no, I don't have time for this anymore. Come on, Bourbon Podcast. I got 15 other million things going on, but you make time for us. And
It's like I got parking lots to scout.
Well, I got one scouted out here.
Yeah, that's right.
I know we're going to be parking about 10 semis here.
There we go.
That's going to be your capital for your next
I
10
think
barrels.
I'm not opposed to it right now.
I
So
know.
we'll make it happen.
I'll be back in touch.
But again, congratulations and everything. Thank you so much for coming out and spending some time with us. If people want to follow your bands, figure out where you're playing next, how do they do that?
Yeah, I wish I had a great answer for that right now, but all my handles, I can't even remember them. But I think I'm like at Dr. Pat Heist on Instagram. Our band is called Zella May, and for some reason, if you put a exclamation point after May, it'll actually pop up on like Spotify and YouTube, and if anybody's interested in seeing any of our gigs or anything. But
Is that like a good long-term like retirement goal for you? Just like, hey, I'm going to play gigs.
Well, we just like to get on stage every now and then, and we actually kick ass, man. If you watch one of our shows, I mean, we're not like Bruce Willis or some of these people who are just, they've got no business on stage. We actually kick ass, and all we want is just a good crowd and a good stage and good sound person, and we'll show up and play.
I'm in.
I'm in.
Put it
But
down.
hey, this
Bucket list
weekend,
item.
this Saturday night, we're playing down at there's a RV lot down close to Connolly Bottom on Connolly
You're like,
Bottom.
how many semis can I fit here?
Well, that's what I'm going to be looking for while I'm down there. But we're going to be jamming out. It's funny. My sister camps at that lot or at that campground, and they put a flyer up, and it said, "Hey, Zella May is going to be playing here Memorial Day." And big surprise, the lead singer of the band is a brother to one of the campers. So I'm like, damn, I have to add that to my resume.
There we go.
Brother of the campers,
right there. Man alive, dude. This is fun. This is one of the best conversations we've had in a while. So thank you so much for coming on the show. Make sure you follow Dr. Pat Heist, support everything that they're doing. I mean, everything that we tried on the table today,
Incredible.
absolute bangers. Ever since you all have like gotten big, like the whiskey's gotten so much better over the years too. Like it's just awesome to kind of see what's been happening and growing. So congratulations on all the success too. If you do like the show, you can support us. Go find us on Patreon, Bourbon Pursuit. Patreon.com/Bourbon Pursuit. You can do it for as little as $5 a month, but
Best deal in bourbon.
it is the best deal. But guess what? If you're like, hey, listen, I just like the free content, that's fine. What you can do is you can share it with a friend. You can write a review. You can do everything to help this podcast grow to find more bourbon lovers that are out there too. But with that, cheers, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Toodles.